Hi, Gerry-Ann.
Hi, how are you today?
Good. Nice to see you again.
Great to see you too.
Thank you very much for coming back and volunteering to be part of our podcast, Thinking Out Loud, a candid conversation about surviving and thriving in an accommodating world. We've done 2 podcasts already. One was about inclusion. The other one was last week was about advocacy and advocating for yourself. And today we're talking a little bit about assistive devices and assistive technology in this day and age, and really like how things have just exploded in terms of being able to find accommodations to do the things that we want to do in really all aspects of our life.
Absolutely, yeah.
So my name is Patricia Digby, of course.
Gerry-Ann Patricia.
And we're here to hopefully provide a little bit of insight, a little bit of ideas, and hopefully also provide a lot of value in terms of any parents, caregivers, professionals, or anybody really who wants to find creative and great ways to accommodate and to participate in all aspects of life.
Yes.
So Gerry-Ann, tell us a little bit about assistive technology, and maybe just start off from the time you were, I guess, young.
Well, it's changed a lot. Well, I remember when I first got my first laptop, and it had like the headset, and I had to dictate, and it never picked up the right words.
So when was this? Like, how many years would this have been?
I think in like grade 9, I got my first laptop, and I had I think it was Dragon Speak. They still use Dragon Speak, but now you had to like train it. Back then you had to train it, so it was hard because you had to read a passage to train it, and I couldn't read the passage. So like my dad would be behind me, be like whispering, be like, "Okay, read that," and then he'd like telling me what it was. You had to read like a passage. I remember it was like Alice in Wonderland. So it was very hard to train it because I couldn't read the passage. So my dad would have to like whisper it in my ear. It's funny. Yeah.
And so what happened before? Let's just take a step backwards and talk, because like that's incredible that in grade 9, that's when you started actually having some kind of computer type of text to speech program, or would it be speech to text program?
Yeah, exactly.
Because really when we think about education, about learning, we start learning how to read and in kindergarten.
Yes, yeah.
So from kindergarten to grade 8,
nothing.
At that point in time, like how were you, like how were you being taught in that venue?
Well, I was in an isolated classroom, so we didn't do a lot of, we learned, but it was like verbal and oral stuff. It was like, I didn't really have a scribe for anything really much. Not till grade 9. Yeah. So
like knowing what you know now and going back, is there a way, do you think that, like, I'm just thinking for teachers, so if there are any teachers or parents out there that have young kids, you know, obviously like up to the age of 12 or 13 before you go to high school, what kinds of things would you recommend sort of an elementary?
Well, an iPad, definitely, with speech to text. And a lot of students, like when I worked in the elementary school, a lot of the students with learning disabilities would have an iPad. Yeah. They would have an iPad, so they had the speech to text, Siri, all that kind of stuff. That would have benefited me, I think, definitely. So
Siri as in like the iPad Siri, like the Apple Siri.
Apple, yeah.
And are there any other programs like that you would recommend?
Well, Dragon Speak is a great one. And it's just, dictating. It also reads back, and then there's also word queue, which is like it guesses what you're trying to spell. So you'll type in like the first couple words, first couple letters, and then it will kind of guess what you're trying to spell.
Okay. So with Dragon Speak, what would you do in terms of, so Dragon Speak, you dictate, it types out what you say.
Yeah.
And the other one that you were saying, what was it called again?
Word queue.
Word queue.
Word queue is nice because if you're like in class and you don't want people to hear you dictating, you can just type in a couple like letters and it will guess what the word is for you. And you just pick from a list and you just listen to it.
So you have a headphone on in class or earbuds?
And earbuds
now, I guess.
Yeah.
And then, so you're still listening because you have to listen.
I have to hear it.
Because if you can't read, then obviously, at least read in the way that we, neurotypical reading kind of methods, then you always have to have like some kind of a Bluetooth type device in there. All right. So you've got that kind of technology. Are there any other kind of?
I had a reading pen, and I had that in like my first couple of years of college. And it's just like a laser pen, and it scans the word, and it reads it to you, and it just goes into the headphones.
So what do you literally do? You literally run the word like
the pen over the word, and it just reads it to you. It's like a little computer in the pen. Yeah, I'll bring it next time. Yeah, I got to remember to bring it. So I haven't used it in a long time. It just reads out one word at a time. So it wasn't as good as now. You can like take a picture with your phone, and my phone will just read it to me. Yeah. And
what do you use for that?
ProQuolo. Oh, sorry. No, that's not the right one. Sorry, I'm going crazy. Sorry. Which one is it called? Speechify. I had to think about it for a minute.
Oh, no
So
worries.
Speechify was actually created by a person who actually has a learning disability too. And you just take a photo and it reads it to you. Turns it into a PDF or Word document.
And so you upload it into?
No, you just take a photo.
You take a photo. So you open up the app.
Yeah. I have it here.
You take the app. You take the picture of it, kind of like a scanning type of app or anything like that.
Yeah, it uses your camera. So you just take a photo of it, and then it scans it, and then you just listen to it. Yeah.
Oh,
yeah. And I can save it and email it to people.
So language, obviously, like those are different ways to be able to adapt for language based content. What about things like math? Like, I'm just trying to think of like, how would you even, like there is a lot of reading in math.
Yeah. I guess I would have to just have a reader scribe. So.
Do you feel like your understanding is different like in math compared to like the way that you understand math compared to somebody who can read in a, neurotypical manner?
I was in a workplace math. So we did kind of just more life skills math. So they tried to teach us how to like count money, make a budget, pay bills, that kind of stuff. But that was very struggling. I don't quite understand money, to be honest. I get a lot of help with that from my parents because I don't quite understand the concept of how much things are worth, and that I've always struggled with that.
Oh, that's very interesting.
So yeah, I do struggle with that, and still now. Luckily, I have my parents helping me because I don't quite understand how much something is, and yeah, I do struggle with that.
So like fractions or percentages, like that kind of stuff.
Yeah, no.
Have you found anything that helps, like when your parents are explaining something? So what would be an example? Like say you wanted to go, like, can you give us an example of something you want to purchase? And then like how would your parents, like you said, like help you with it? So usually we kind of discuss
what I need and how much I need to put aside, but I don't quite understand it. Everything I do, my credit cards and everything comes automatically off of my account, so I know, if that makes any sense. So the way they set it up for me is that, my car insurance comes off my Visa, so it does it automatically, so I don't really have to worry. So I have paid off my Visa card quite a bit, because I'm so worried. I see a big number and I'm like, oh no, I better pay it off. And then I paid it off like 3 times because I didn't know.
Okay.
So in that sense, like it's set up for me, so I don't have to really worry because I know it comes off, and they just check, make sure I don't overspend. So
No,
unfortunately, because I don't understand it, to be honest. If that answers your question.
Yeah. So like basically your fixed expenses are your banking is set up like a lot of people do, where like, you know, like X amount comes out for your mortgage, X amount comes for your insurance, X amount comes for your whatever it is that you have that are your fixed expenses. Yeah. But then say, for example, you wanted to buy, a car, a new dress or something like that. Would you, and you saw that the dress was $100. So how would that, like, would you go to your parents and say like, listen, Mom, I want to buy this dress for $100. Do I have enough money in my account? Or would you be able to just look at your account, see 100 and be like, oh, okay, like, yeah, I've got.
Yeah, I could look at my account and see that I had 100, like, let's say my account has like $500. I could see, okay, well, I can figure that out so I can, you know, use $100 out of that. Yeah. I think it's more like big numbers and stuff. So like when I buy a house eventually or something, or condo, I'd probably have to get someone to explain all that kind of budgeting with the math.
Yeah. And then I guess just set everything up. Yeah. So that you understand that all your bills are going to be paid and that you don't have to worry. As long as you go in, you do your job, you get paid every 2 weeks, your expenses are covered. Yeah. Which I guess really is what everybody else does, right?
I just get my mom and dad to kind of like check, make sure, because I worry. I'm like, oh wait, did I do this right? You know, do I have enough money here? So, yeah, and we're supportive in that sense. Yeah.
Yeah, it's really like, I guess, finding somebody that you really trust.
Yes. Yeah. And luckily, I have very supportive families. So.
No, makes a big difference.
But yeah, and nothing so far for math as for technology, other than calculator and working with my dad.
Do you find like when you are working on something, do you find visuals are easier than, or concrete, or like how do you find?
I would say concrete, like hands-on, like more,
so that you like see it.
I need to see it and to understand it. Yeah. So
What else have you found very useful in terms of technology?
What else? So, I use a GPS.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I actually have 2.
All right.
Funny note. So I use a GPS on my phone, and I also have like a TomTom. So I find, because sometimes, you know, when you're driving somewhere, you'll lose signal, and then one GPS won't work. So.
Okay. So do you put your GPS on then? I know you have 2, but I thought like if one, the battery doesn't, like, dies on you. So
I only put one on a time.
Okay.
Yeah. So like I was driving to my friend's house. She lives, where does she live? I'm not very good with directions, but she lives like in 2 hours away. And so I was driving there, and, you know, I was on the highway, good. And then the GPS, I guess, signal got lost. I was like, what do I do? So I just plugged in the other one. So I was like, it saved my life there.
And how did you learn how to use the GPS? Like,
it's like speech to text again.
So so you just listen to
what it's telling me.
What it's telling you, like, in the next right, make a... Yeah. And then you just do it.
A lot of times I've, got off on the wrong exit because you got to figure it out. But yeah, for the most part. And, yeah.
How did you figure out, like, that the GPS would work like that, like, for you?
Just practice. And my dad set me up with it, and just practice.
So basically, like, your dad and your mom, like, would be like, like Gerry-Ann will want to drive one day. Yes. How's that going to work for her? And then they'll kind of try and figure out, based on what your learning style is.
Exactly.
What will be, like, it sounds to me like it's like, what is speech directed? Yeah. So, like, everything has to come through speech and your hearing.
I have trouble with left and right, so I know, like, my one of my bracelets is on my left hand and right hand, and so that helps me. So I know my watch is on my left hand and my medical alert is on my right hand. But if they switch, I might forget.
Fair enough. I have trouble with left and right. So, I still do. It's like weird. Like,
when I drive with my friends, or if we're driving to like open gymnastic club or something, they'll tap on the window to tell me where to turn. So I hear the noise. So
wow.
Instead of, so they're like, oh, go here. Because sometimes they'll be like pointing and I can't see them when I'm driving. So they tap on the window so I hear the noise. So we kind of figured it out.
I think that's amazing.
Yeah.
Like that goes to show, like, these friends of yours, like, that have known you for obviously a long time. Mm-hmm. So they've just kind of come to, like, I guess as friends, you just kind of know what works and what doesn't. Yeah.
And you know what? We've driven places and we got lost, and comes an adventure, you know? I remember we were driving to this one gymnastics club and we ended up at the airport. And, you know, instead of getting upset at me, they were just laughing, and we had we redirected and got back on the highway and we were good.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
So, but yeah, I find I need the 2 GPS because with my anxiety, I've been in the past where one has not worked. Mm-hmm. And then I'm like, what do I do? And then I have to pull over and I'm panicking. So, yeah.
So if I was a person that was at like a gas station or something like that, and you pulled in and you were like, excuse me, but I have no idea where I am and where should I go? What should I do? What could I do to help you out?
So that's happened before, actually.
Oh.
So before I had my GPS, I used to go by memory. So when I went to Seneca College, first year, my dad would drive me every day until I memorized the route. So when I got, so I'm laughing because this was funny. So one time I was, driving home and we had a detour and the cop was like, you need to like go a different way. And I was like, I have no idea. And I'm crying. I don't know where I'm going. So I'm, crying. So I'm driving for a bit around. Then I see a gas station. I pull in. I call my dad at school, and he's teaching. And I'm like, I don't know where I am. And he's like, okay, give the phone to the gas station attendant, and he'll tell me where you are, and then I'll verbally direct you. So that's what we had to do.
So then your dad verbally directed you,
he was
and then
like,
you memorized what your dad said.
So he would, like, I had him on speaker, so he'd just like turn right at, this gas station. Like he like told me landmarks. So be like, drive. He's like, as soon as you see this you'll see this building, because I didn't know where it was going. So he just talked me all the way back. So, because he knew where it was. So. So I'd be like, turn right at this house, or this building, Yeah.
Amazing.
So.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's very cool.
And he talked me all the way back. So that was funny. At the time I was panicked. I was like, I have no idea where I'm going.
Yeah, of course.
So now I prepare. I make sure, So even when I drive to your house, I have my GPS on.
You always have your GPS basically on.
Yeah. I've almost memorized it. I've almost memorized how to get to your house.
So you must have a very good memory then.
Yeah. So.
Actually, you do have a very good memory because you remember a lot of stuff.
Yeah, well, I memorized how to get to our school now, so I don't need the GPS anymore.
Yeah, I guess that's, I think practice makes perfect, right? Because you had to rely on your memory, then your memory's probably like extremely sharp.
Yeah.
Compared to like my memory or someone, who doesn't have to rely on it as much.
Yeah. Because
we have like different other venues to sort of take in information, right?
Yeah. And people have said to me, well, how did you get home? What road did you down? I don't know. That one over there. I don't know. I'm just like, I went down that cornfield, I don't know how I got home. I just know visually how I got home.
So what would you do, for example, if you were starting a new job and you wanted to learn about...
So that's a good question, because I did that when I started at the school. I practiced driving for a couple days. I practiced different ways, and I found a way that was best for me. So.
And then even for like training and stuff like that, like, how we have like a training manual or we have, so would you just take that home and then you would just
study
speech to text, or no, text to speech,
or get someone to read it to me? But yeah.
And then you would try to memorize whatever was the important parts of it.
Yeah.
So it's really just giving like a little bit of a heads up, which I think every organization does. Like nobody's
Yeah.
just going to give you something like, hey, okay, I want you to do it. They'd be like, hey, tomorrow we're going to try this out.
Yeah.
Take a little bit of a look and, prepare yourself kind of thing.
Yeah, definitely. Everything has to go to memorization, I would say. Yeah. Yeah.
Is there anything else that you can think of that you find really helpful when it comes to sort of assistive technology?
The main thing for me is the speech to text. And like I find Mac computers are so much better because they have it already built in. So I'll use like Siri, I'll use reading, there's just reading, so you just select it and read. Like the good thing about a Mac is that it has all the assistive technology built in. And like a PC, no, you have to buy the extras things.
So in a Mac, do you go under assistive technology and so what would you choose, for example, under assistive technology?
Well, I have it all set up, so I just press, there's like a button I just press and the microphone goes on and I just talk. But I had it all set up, so like my dad helped me ahead of time and we set it up. So you just press the button on the keyboard now, it just goes. Yeah.
Do you think it's worthwhile for like a young child starting out at school to have sort of a Mac or an iPad? Like, do you think, I know you mentioned the iPad.
I would say an iPad would be better for them.
Okay.
Because it's just a little easier to handle and stuff. You can have all that stuff on there, like Pages, Word, everything like that. And all those apps are, the scan text ones and Dragon Speak. There's so many great apps out there. Yeah.
And how do you find, like, what's the best way that you find out about apps?
I just kind of Google it, or I will look at Pinterest, and sometimes
what would you look under in Pinterest?
Assistive technology. So I just dictate assistive technology, and then I look. Yeah, and then I look at the pictures.
All right.
And then I get I highlight the description, and I read it to me, and then I know what it is.
Because I know, like, for example, at school, you're like app expert in the classroom because you're constantly like.
Because I have to find those things for myself, so that's why I'm just so used to it. So I just dictate it in, I find it, I know what I'm looking for, I download it, I try it out. If it works, then I stick with it.
Because I find too, as well, like you're very observant.
Mm-hmm.
So when it comes to like whether it's the students, whether it's our team, whether it, like you can notice sort of for the students when they're working on something, where they're having a little bit of difficulty, and then you tend to kind of like find an app that
would help them. Yes,
that would help them.
Yeah, I just guess practice. So yeah.
I think it makes a big difference, right? Like that's when you live it, when you have that experience, it means something to you, and you know what a difference it makes. Yes. And it will make for the individual that is accessing it. Like, can you imagine I can't imagine looking at something and not being able to understand it, except, a few years ago we went to Austria, and in Austria, I think when I think about a little bit how that must feel, I just remember going into the subway station and every word was 10 plus letters. And we were just looking around, trying to figure, and they all looked the same. Everything looked the same. And we had a map, we had everything, but again, I think
it's another language. Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
We looked at landmarks. There was this one circle kind of area, and as soon as we saw the circle, we knew we were close to where our condo was. Yeah. And when you're explaining sort of assistive technology and what you use and how you focus on sort of that visual, the visual cues, and that sounds very much like my experience in Austria.
Yeah. Even driving to your house, sometimes I have trouble with the numbers. I just know that you have that. I look at your house and I know you have that soccer thing.
Oh,
yes. So I know it's your house. I just knew I memorized it. Yeah, I just memorized what things look like.
So if I had to give you, Like, I'm trying to think. Well, I think I just gave you my address, right?
I copied it and pasted it into my GPS. And then the GPS read it.
So really, like, being very direct in terms of, like, I'm just thinking if somebody had to give you instructions or someone had to give someone else instructions, what that would kind of look like.
It would need to be, like, I would have to copy and paste it into my maps, and then my maps would read it. But if we didn't have the assistive technology, you would have to talk me through it, through landmarks and stuff. Yeah.
So I guess when you're talking about all of the different types of technology that you've used, like, that's really been a turning point for you in terms of the courses you've taken, your path in education, all of that stuff.
I don't have to rely on somebody else as much. I still sometimes need a little bit of help, but now I'm able to, like, okay, I got this because I have my computer. I don't have to ask someone to read it to me because the computer will do it. So that's given me a lot of independence. I also forgot I do have a little printer. So one of the schools I worked at, we used to have to take notes, and I have trouble writing. Right. So I would dictate my notes onto my phone and then print them up and then stick them in the book. Oh. Yeah, so like a communication log you would send home to the parents or something to let them know how the student's doing. I dictate it to my phone, and then I print it up and then just glue it in the book.
Fair enough.
So fair enough. That's the way I did it, yeah.
So that actually comes to, like, because you're grammatically very well spoken.
Oh, thank you.
How do you figure out grammar then?
I'm not very good with grammar. I just talk into it like I would normally talk.
And then you would, like, ask somebody to look it over just to give you...
Yeah, like I'd get my dad or my mom to read it over because sometimes I just talk and then it just goes. I know how to, like, I'll say period and stuff and question mark, but my grammar's not the best. I'm so used to just talking. Yeah. So,
communication is communication. Grammar is important, of course, but at the same time, I always look at grammar as being kind of like the fine-tuning part of communication, but the main part, I don't know, I always tell my students, and I've told my kids too, like, you just have to spit your ideas out on paper.
And that's what I do. I just dictate it, and then I read it over with my dad, or I listen to it, and then we fix it.
And have you ever had trouble or difficulty where somebody's, like, changed your words, and you were like, wait a minute, that's not exactly what I meant?
I've usually told them, so... I usually told them, like, that's not what I said. So, but for the most part, it's been okay. Yeah. For, like, when I have scribes at school, they're not allowed to say anything. They have to type exactly. So.
And in order to get a scribe at school, like, you touched about it last week, I think it was. So that's something where before you actually take a class or anything, you have to kind of go into the guidance office.
Oh, to get your accommodation letter, yeah. So one of my accommodations would be to have a reader scribe. Now you have the option to do it on the computer. But I like the reader scribe because it's a little bit easier, because then sometimes the technology is not always the greatest. Back then it wasn't. Now it's better. So I have the option to do it either on the computer or a reader scribe. And then, double time. Double time if I need it. Yeah.
Oh, double time. Okay. Is there anything, before we kind of wrap up, is there anything else that you'd like to kind of share with us, or?
Well, there's always funding you can get. I was just going to say, you can always claim. I know my dad always claimed, like, my assistive technology and stuff through insurance, I think. And then there's, so many, forms of ways to get assistive technology covered. So, yeah.
So I guess it's worth asking.
Yeah, it's definitely worth asking, yeah.
And would that come from the sort of like the guidance office at the school? Would it come from your doctor's office? Like, how would that kind of play out?
So the school would get your psych evaluation, and then they would claim the piece of technology. And so you would have Like now I know you would get a laptop for your whole high school career, and then you have to give it back when you graduate.
Oh.
Yeah, I know. It's not yours. It's the school's. So.
Oh, that way. Okay, through school.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's not yours, so it's not yours. So the school will provide you with the assistive technology if you have the proper documentation. So yeah, they should provide you with the iPad or all that stuff.
All right. Well, you've definitely given us a lot of things to think about to kind of at least start with when it comes up to, looking at assistive technology. I'm really happy now that we have so much opportunity.
So much better.
I remember, friends of ours, friends of mine whose kids have, were coming through the system, and there's very little out there. Yeah. For anyone, and even scribing, like nobody really knew what scribing was.
Yeah.
Or nobody knew what extra time was, or even how to take an assignment and break it down
into small parts.
Into small parts to like help with that organizational structure piece. And those were, pivotal moments of education for those children that needed that, because they could understand it. They just needed an organizer to just give them structure in how to really think it through, which is something all of us need. Like, that's what we learn as we go through school, is about how to structure, organize, build in sort of those supports for ourselves, where nowadays we've got that opportunity to use technology to be more accessible to anything.
Yeah. Yeah. I also do have textbooks on audio. All my textbooks from university are on audio.
So you got that through the university bookstore?
No, I had to buy them, buy the books, and then the school would contact the publisher to get me a PDF. And I had to sign a thing saying that I wouldn't share it with anybody. And then it would read. And then I just, put it in my computer and listen to it.
So you had to buy the book.
I still had to buy the book, yeah.
Then you had to tell your prof?
No, I would go to like the guidance office, and they would contact the publisher and say, we have a student that has, accommodations. Could you please send us a PDF of the textbook? So sometimes it would take months, sometimes it would take a couple weeks. And then they would send me a CD or a drive of it, yeah.
Wow.
But sometimes I'd be waiting for a long time, and I'd be like, I can't get my assignment in because I don't have my book yet. So.
No wonder you're a planner. Like, you have to be.
You have to be. But now they have great, online, you can just go online and type in the name of the textbook, and you can get it audio. Now you don't have to contact the publisher. It's so much easier. So within that 5 years of being out of school, they've changed that. So
it's amazing. Yeah. It goes to show that there are more people that are out there. There are more people now that are advocating for accommodations and know what kind of accommodations are required in order to be successful. Because that's what it is. Like, what do I need in order to be able to do this? And then figuring out how to do that.
Yeah.
Right. So that actually ends our podcast for today. Next week, but it also kind of brings us a little bit into our next week's podcast, which is about government supports, which we touched on a little bit today. And next week actually is going to be our last podcast.
Okay.
So at least for now, before we kind of hopefully continue a little bit at another date. So we'll talk next week a little bit about government supports, and we'll start touching a little bit about siblings with special needs, and just looking at sort of sibling relationships, because I know when we were trying to figure out what you thought, topics that you thought were really important that would add value to families and the community, really, you mentioned that was something that you thought was very important that would help.
Absolutely.
Just with that understanding piece and something that's worth knowing.
Definitely.
So thanks again, Gerry-Ann, for coming.
Thank you.
And really, really appreciate it.
Thank you so much. I always enjoy coming.
Well, if anybody has any questions, any comments, please send them to us. Thank you very much for listening to us. We really, really appreciate it and are just really honored that you've taken the time to just listen to us chat.
Oh, thank you.
Take care.
Thanks.
Bye.